One day after leaves 2 police officers dead. Good afternoon.
And I'm Sherry Margolis. 2 off-duty Sterling Heights officers were killed in the crash just hours after attending a party with fellow officers. TV2's Mike Redford has the latest on the accident, which shook dozens of sleeping Sterling Heights residents late last night.
The plane crashed shortly before 11 p.m. into a garage on Paris Street, forcing the family of 5 who lived at the home to go elsewhere for the night. This morning, the homeowner and a friend picked up the family dog and other personal belongings. The friend offered this comment about the family's close call.
I don't know, they're shaky. They're shaky? Yeah, the kids can sleep all night. Could sleep all night.
Killed in the crash was 42-year-old Tim Bishop, who piloted the plane. He was a 20-year Sterling Heights police officer. John Carrion, the passenger, was the other crash victim. The 37-year-old had been with the same police department for 16 years.
These are 2 gentlemen that had contributed to this community. They were reliable police officers. They were very dedicated. I guess you can say anybody can be replaced, but to those of us that work here, we don't think they can be replaced.
Investigators with the Federal Aviation Administration, the National Transportation Safety Board, say it'll be several weeks before an exact cause of the crash will be determined. Initial reports indicate engine trouble before the plane shot this antenna and went down.
There was some sputtering of the engine, and the pilot, they say, appeared to try and start plane again.
Ironically, there was a gathering of Sterling Heights police officers right across the street last night at this Fraternal Order of Police Hall. In fact, at some point in the night, Bishop and Carrion were there and alcohol was served. But there's no indication at this point if either of the officers was drinking. And even if they were, there was no indication at this point if that was a factor in the crash. Reporting from Sterling Heights, Mike Redford, TV2 First News.
Crisis counselors spent the day today at the Sterling Heights Police Department to help other officers deal with the loss of their colleagues.
Well, Sherry, in Madison Heights, a story of a miraculous survival after a house is leveled by an explosion. A neighbor living near the home on Karam Street recorded this exclusive.
Started out as a fun flight, turned into a deadly joyride. 2 Sterling Heights police officers are dead after their single-engine Cessna smashed into a garage. It happened late last night in a neighborhood on Mound Road. And amazingly, the family inside this house walked away without a scratch. Now it's up to investigators to sort through the mangled metal and figure out how and why this happened. I'm Carmen Harlan. We'll take you live to the scene for the latest.
I'm Mort Krim. Also making headlines on this Friday night, it's up to an Oregon judge to decide the outcome of the latest battle between Tonya Harding and the U.S. Olympic Committee. That's coming up. From the Gulf Coast and all the way up the East Coast, they're slipping, sliding, and smashing into each other. It's a brutal storm that's sending some of its stranded victims here. And it's designed to help you in case you're attacked. But does it work? We'll show you how to fight back. These stories and more right now on the News Beat.
And now, with Mort Krim and Carmen Harlan, this is News Beat at 5.
We cannot speculate as to what caused the aircraft to come down at the particular location that it did.
Investigators in that house in Sterling Heights is hurt. The family got out just before the crash. It's an unbelievable scene, a plane lodged in a garage. But there are lots of questions of how this single-engine Cessna got there, and Newsbeat's Mike Lewis has been looking for answers.
As a police helicopter hovers overhead, crews on the ground dislodge a plane from a garage. The crash killed off-duty Sterling Heights police officer Tim Bishop, the pilot and owner of the plane, and his companion, Sergeant John Carrion.
Earlier in the evening, the 2 officers had attended a party here at the Fraternal Order of Police Hall. They then left to get Officer Tim Bishop's airplane. They were flying back this way when they clipped that tower about 200 yards behind the hall. Apparently, they were going to come in low over this hall. After they hit the tower, lost part of the wing, the airplane landed in the garage and breezeway of this family's home.
The 2 had been there earlier in the evening, but I'm not aware of any connection between the events. I don't know that their being there was anything more than a coincidence, but there's nothing to indicate one way or the other.
But some call it sheer coincidence that the plane almost crashed the party full of Sterling Heights police. Some witnesses say the pilot was fighting engine trouble and losing altitude as it flew low over Mound Road.
just little short bursts like that. And
Ricky Shear says he watched knowing the plane was going down.
He kept trying to get the engine to go. It would rev for like a quarter second, half second, and then die off. And he did that, you know, a couple more times. And he constantly was losing altitude, maybe 100 miles an hour as he headed off to the south. And about 3/4 of a mile down, all of a sudden he just pulled a hard right turn and dove into the ground.
Investigators now believe that hard right turn came when the plane lost part of its right wing as it clipped this 100-foot tall, unlighted radio tower. The ambulance crew inside the building did not hear any engine noise. All the Orlowski family heard was a loud crash as the plane slammed into their garage, narrowly missing the room where their 2 young sons were sleeping.
They are thankful that nothing happened to them. They do feel bad for the officers that were killed, but they are extremely grateful.
Now, the family who lived in this house had recently immigrated from Poland. In fact, they speak no English. This house was part of their American dream. Certainly, they never dreamed of anything like this happening, however. Now, the crews have just finished removing the wreckage out of the wreckage of the garage, putting the wreckage of the plane over here, ironically, in the lot of the Fraternal Order of Police Hall, where the 2 officers started their ill-fated evening. The first truck has the small pieces, including the engine. The main fuselage is back on that further truck. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board telling me just a short time ago they will take all of the wreckage over to the Sterling Heights Police evidence lot. Well, they will go over it looking for any evidence of mechanical failure or any other clues as to what caused this bizarre and very tragic crash. Mort?
Do you have any word on whether they performed toxicology tests on the pilot and his passenger?
No, not yet, Mort. Of course, at the press conference, because of the officers attending this party last night, the police officials were asked if there had been any drinking involved. The captain said, I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you if I did. We can tell you, we're told that Officer Tim Bishop was a very experienced pilot, more than 25 years under his belt, and he took his flying and his plane very seriously.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Newsbeat's Mike Lewis reporting live from Sterling Heights. Sergeant John Carrion leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Officer Tim Bishop is survived by a child and a fiancé in Las Vegas. We'll take a look at these dramatic scenes. They're from Chicago. Fire ripping through an apartment.
Carrion is sergeant?
Yes.
And Bishop is an officer?
Officer patrolman. Both are assigned to the day shift in the Patrol Bureau.
Did they work the day of the crash? Did they work that day?
I believe they worked yesterday. Yeah, we have photographs being...
They weren't partners at one time, were they? On the street.
We don't run a great deal of 2-man cars in the traditional sense. They've worked together as peers. I know that many times.
Certainly not any effort to indict or impugn the officers, but was there any indication inside the plane of alcohol or anything? They had just left a party, apparently.
Again, I don't know that we would have been in a position to identify that. The plane was still there when we left, and I'm sure the FAA and the other agency will do a very thorough investigation, and we'll get the results of that. I have nothing to indicate that that would be the case, no.
I've heard a lot of witnesses say that it appeared that they were trying to land the plane.
From my information at this point, that's speculative. It seems to make sense in terms of potential engine trouble, but I couldn't support that one way or the other.
Anyone at the gathering that they were at earlier mentioned if they were told about the 2 planning to take flight?
I don't know. There's conversations. We're still running that down, Bill. Nothing definitive at this point.
And again, that party across the street was a gathering to celebrate some new cadets, a new class.
The probationary period for a new police officer is 1 year. And it's fairly traditional at the end of the probationary period for some sort of gathering to help celebrate their making the grade, so to speak. Anything else?
Do you have pictures of the two officers?
We're preparing those right now.
Them being printed right now.
Do you know what will be happening out at the scene today?
You might be more current than I on that.
The National Transportation Safety Board is probably at the scene right now, and they'll be sifting through the wreckage, and they'll be examining the engine and the airplane itself to determine the cause of the crash.
In terms of the family of the house, I know they left last night after it happened. Have you been in contact with them in terms of what their status is? Is there going to be a community outreach at all?
Initially, they were taken to the FOP hall where they were taken out of the cold, and they have relatives in the immediate area, so they were staying with relatives shortly thereafter.
Will there be a fund for the officers at all? Is there anything, any thought for that? They have kids.
Do you guys have anything planned?
Well, there's a number of initiatives that are going to surface in the next couple of days. Right now, some of the officers closest to the families, we're a relatively large organization, so some are closer than others, are with the family right now, and notifications of parents were made last night. In Sergeant Carrion's case, the parents are upstate, so we sent people up there, so we're trying to develop as much of a support system, both morally and financially, as we can for them.
You know if Bishop had a chance to radio a distress call?
That we don't know.
No, we wouldn't be privy to air traffic, Bill, so I'm sure that'll be determined again by the investigation.
Has it been determined how long the plane was in the air before the crash?
We don't know that now either.
Little planes don't have recorders, do they?
No.
Not required.
Yeah.
I understand Tim had been piloting planes since he was 15 years old. So he was an experienced pilot, and from all indications from other pilots, he was a very safe pilot too.
That was his plane?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he ever use the plane in line of duty?
No.
No.
Okay.
Thank you much.
Once again, that was Police Chief.
In the air after last night's crash of a private plane is, were the officers at the controls? Were they playing a prank? Were they trying to buzz a police officer's party they had just left? Channel 7's Mike Huckman has the latest on this sad story.
Sterling Heights police are in mourning over the deaths of two veteran cops. 42-year-old Tim Bishop and 37-year-old Sergeant John Carrion were killed when Bishop's plane crashed into the utility room of this house around 11 o'clock Thursday night.
These are two gentlemen that had contributed to this community. They were reliable police officers. They were very dedicated.
Bishop was a respected policeman and a respected pilot.
Quite an experienced pilot. He's been around the aviation industry a long time, flight instructor, commercial pilot.
Tonight, relatives and friends of the family who live at the home where Bishop's plane crashed salvaged what they could. The two adults and their two children were home, but they were not hurt, just disoriented.
They're still visibly shaken today. Mentally, they're shaken. Physically, they're fine.
The plane, which took off from Oakland-Troy Airport, crashed after clipping an ambulance radio dispatch tower.
Then the wing fell off, and it kind of went sideways and cut the wires and then went upside down into the house.
The building just behind me belongs to the Fraternal Order of Police, which is where the two men had been earlier Thursday evening for a party for Sterling Heights rookies who had just passed through their probationary period. Well, as it turns out, that building happens to be right across the street from the home where the plane crashed.
I'm not aware of any connection between the events. I don't know that their being there was anything more than a coincidence.
But some residents, like Anthony Klee's mother, say the plane had been circling over their neighborhood. So she says the plane had been in the area.
Yeah, she said it come flying over first before it went down.
Autopsies will be performed on the victims to determine the exact cause of death, but it could be months before FAA investigators determine the exact cause of the crash. In Sterling Heights, Mike Huckman, Channel 7 Action News, reporting.
Tonight, the man wanted for questioning in the murder of a local businessman in Mexico.
I'm sure what she's telling them right now is that she tried her best to get out here on time. She threw the lace on, she threw it together, and she did the best.